these talks are always so educative, and if you want to listen to previous talks that we've had, you can of course go to economist.com.na and listen, and you can also send us an email if you would like a specific topic to be discussed. You can of course send an email to me, elsabi@energy100fm.com. So please do that right away. But continuing this talk on GDP, and we are talking about net exports as well. Mr. Steinmann.
Elsabi, net exports are the last component in the GDP formula. But before I carry on with that, let me remind you what we said in the beginning, why we are having this talk.
Yeah.
We're not talking about GDP to teach economic students, to make them a little bit more clever. They know what it is.
Yeah.
We're talking about GDP because of the very obvious breakdown, failure in the whole framework to be a realistic measure of prosperity. Because remember, that's what I said.
Yes.
If there isn't prosperity, if we're not making progress, if the cake isn't getting bigger for all of us, we're wasting our time. It's academic.
Yeah.
So that brings us now to the last one, net imports. And what does it mean, net imports? It's the difference between what we import and what we export.
Yeah.
Now, immediately a red light should flash again, because Namibia is again a unique example. Why is that? Because we import 84% of what we consume.
And like I said off air, I feel like it's 99.9%. But
let's stick with 84%. It's bigger now.
Okay.
Now remember, what was the first component? Consumption.
Consumption, yeah.
Yeah, and how do you account for consumption? You pay for it with your salary. So it's easy to go look at what everybody collectively earned to determine consumption. But we also count it as number 4 in our list of components in the GDP formula, and in Namibia's case, the imports are usually much higher than the exports. What makes this even more complicated and interconnected is the fact that our imports are constituted from a small basket of commodities. We don't export machinery.
yes,
We do export the odd second-hand fishing boat every now and then, but the value of that single fishing trawler is so huge it distorts all the statistics, And we now and then we export old mining equipment, but we basically export diamonds and uranium and gold and tin and copper and beef and grapes when they are in season and dates. So can you see I'm counting them on my fingers. I'm battling to get to 10. We have very, very few export commodities. This is also one of the problems that you always hear the Minister of Finance refer to when they say that we have a thin economy or a shallow economy. It is there's not this very broad base. If you look at South Africa, what they export must be in the region of a couple of 100,000 various commodities, items, value-added items, not just raw material.
Yeah.
It's a big difference. Well, South Africa, for all practical intents, is a developed economy in that sense.
Yes.
And we are not, We are dependent on the export of primary commodities. And that big word simply means diamonds and gold and uranium and that sort of thing. So now there's a concept that we call the balance of payment. And this is also a bit technical, but the balance of payment refers to that difference between the value of what you bring in the country and what you send out. Now, usually with us, the balance of payment is negative. It means that 84% that we import, that we consume, that we also use for investment, is much bigger than what we earn from the value of the diamonds that we send out and the uranium and. And where do you see it? You usually see it in foreign reserves, although I have to say that we are actually now in a good position with foreign reserves.
Yeah.
But that's where you see it in the statistics, you know. And in the capital account of the balance of payments. Now, don't look at me like that. It's not getting so technical, but there's a current account and there's a capital account, and I think it's not the place here to try and explain the difference. The difference is basically the way that you do your accounting. I want to get back to the essence of GDP, and the big thing is, despite all its shortcomings, everybody in economics know what the formula is for GDP. You learn it very early in your life. Everybody knows what the shortcomings are. The double counting, the emissions doesn't work. It's not a real reflection. But the attempts to find an alternative, the so-called HDIs, the Human Development Indices, have not gained popularity over the last 40 years. They are even more full of holes statistically than GDP. So what's very important for us, if you choose a certain GDP framework, like Namibia did in 2003 with the IMF medium-term expenditure framework, you have to stick to it.
Yeah.
It's not our job to try and improve the system. It's our job to use that framework to measure economic output over a 12-month period, but we have to use the same framework every year. Otherwise, the data will not be dependable.
As clear as that. Thank you so much, Mr. Steinmann, for coming through and, giving us that breakdown. It was indeed very interesting and very educative. And like I said earlier, you can, of course, go to economist.com.na and listen to our previous talks. Very interesting, very educative. But it's time for us to say goodbye. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for keeping it locked to the Power Station Energy 100. From myself, Elsabeth Vinyani, from Mr. Daniel Steinmann and the team, we say goodbye.